Carrie, Tamara, thank you. That's it wasn't sufficient, was actually better than efficient. That's why it's gone through so quick. Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to our next item, and that is item 13, unlucky for some. That's a development of Play Streets guidance for Tamaki Makaurau. The mover will be Councillor Mulholland and Councillor Casey. Are you okay to second the recommendation?
Delighted, thank you, Alfie.
No problems at all. So it's now put on the table. I'm going to invite Jacqueline and Mace, and if you could introduce any of the team members. Jacqueline, Kilda.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Jacqueline Collins, tōku ingoa. I'm not actually sure whether Mace is on the call. I think he is. Let me share my screen. There's no other team members on the call, so let me just share my screen. 1 second.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much for letting me come and present this report to you. It's a piece of mahi which is a great passion for me, so it's excellent to be able to share it with you all. What the purpose of today's presentation is to pretty much close the loop on the Innovating Streets for People Community Play Streets for Tamaki Makaurau project, which was approved for submission by members of the governing body when in 2020, when we were deciding which projects would go forward to Waka Kotahi for consideration for funding. So the purpose of today is to close the loop on that pilot project and to talk about the next steps. And the goal is to have the approval to develop our pathway to permanence for the project, which is some Play Streets guidance to enable this activity to continue. So just a really quick reminder about our Play Streets pilot, because we've detailed it in the report and in the attachment. It was funded by Waka Kotahi and the activation budget. It was delivered in 2021, and it was done in partnership with Auckland Transport and with the community partners, the Cause Collective and Healthy Families Waitakere. And we worked on a very devolved management style for this project, and that we expected the two community partners to really take the lead at a local level, and that worked very well for us. We delivered the project at 7 different sites in West Auckland and South Auckland, and we ran a total of 9 Play Streets events. The pilot was a really big success. I'm very pleased to say we had nothing but good feedback from everybody involved. And as attachment 1 details, the measures that we tracked to measure the success of the pilot resoundingly indicated that we achieved our goals of increasing access to play, strengthening community cohesion, and providing a process which residents would actually be willing to engage with again, which is obviously our goal. So as I mentioned earlier, our pathway to permanence for this pilot was in part to figure out how we can do this on an ongoing basis for Aucklanders. As I won't go through everything I've gone through in the report regarding the context, but the big goal in this is to think about how can we as council create mechanisms or enable opportunities for play to be something that we support beyond just building playgrounds. Playgrounds will always be hugely important to Aucklanders and to us to provide, but they're very expensive. We can't necessarily put them in some areas very easily when areas are already very busy, and also they're only one of many, many ways that children like to play. So what I wanted to just do is really briefly talk about the scope and scale of Play Streets as we mean it for the purposes of this discussion, because it is a phrase, or Play Streets is a term that gets used quite often and it can mean different things to different people. So when we talk about Play Streets, we are very much in line with Waka Kotahi's guidelines for the temporary restriction of traffic to Play Street events, and our pilot project actually fed into the development of those guidelines. So we're talking about the temporary restriction of road traffic, so play can be enabled to take place on residential streets. So this is a temporary short-term kind of thing we're thinking about. It's maybe 2 to 3 hours on an afternoon. It is very local in its focus, so it's intended for the people who live in the street. It's not intended to be a big community event with a cast of thousands invited. It's meant to be for the people who live on the street and maybe right next to the street. It's not meant to be something that we as council kind of parachute in and deliver for communities. Instead, it's about us creating the mechanisms to enable communities to run these events themselves if they want to. The reason why we need to look at the mechanisms and what we were trying to kind of establish through our pilot was currently and to date, the only way to temporarily restrict traffic to a street is to do a full transport management plan and a full event permit pretty much. So it's a very, very, very elaborate, expensive and time-consuming process to enable somebody to shut a cul-de-sac for 2 hours so the kids can have a play. So what we were trying to test in our pilot was a much more simplified process which was more proportionate with regard to the risk and the scale of event. We aren't trying to kind of give communities permission to have, I don't know, massive 21sts happening all night in a cul-de-sac. This is very much about enabling play. So while there are amazing community cohesion benefits, the focus, certainly from my perspective, is very much on creating more space, time and opportunity for children to play. I think that this project will be a really low-cost way that we as council can support more access to play for children. There's not really any ongoing costs, because once we've trained residents in how to safely close their street to traffic and manage that process, and after we maybe provide some cones and some high-vis and some signage and have done the traffic management checks at the beginning of the process, that's pretty much it when it comes to costs. It's not about us going in and providing stuff, it's about us just providing the space and enabling residents to claim back their neighbourhood streets as spaces that can be used for other activities than just parking and driving. And obviously it's super low carbon, because if kids are playing in their immediate street, they're not getting driven anywhere. So my presentation is very short and sweet, and I just wanted to end it with some photos and quotes from our pilot, because I think these capture really well what a play street looks like and what the lasting benefits are. So these quotes are really lovely. They're from some of our play streets participants in West Auckland, so Healthy Families Waitakere have gathered them for us. I think the one that I really like in particular is the second one about kids playing in different locations more, because I think that's the way that play streets enables more play. So obviously on the day when the street is closed, there is more opportunity to play, but by having an event like this and letting neighbours get to know each other, I as a parent would be much more likely to allow my children to go down the road and play at somebody else's house if I've met those parents and know them. So I think that just creating this opportunity for people to get to know each other with this real play focus will just lead to more opportunities. And similarly, the community cohesion elements have been amazing, and we knew that they would be, but it's been really marked because our play streets happened before our big lockdown last year, and several of the participants commented that having those stronger social bonds before the lockdown was hugely beneficial when the lockdown happened, because it meant that they knew each other, they could keep an eye on each other, and people were sharing food and resources, which wasn't happening in these streets before these events took place. So in short, that's pretty much my presentation. We would really just like approval to move forward and work with Auckland Transport, who is primed and ready to go, to develop some guidance with the involvement of our communities as well, so we can figure out a way to take our learnings from our pilot and basically make this something that we can provide for all the time. So I very much welcome any questions.
Kia ora, Jacqueline. I just wanted to say, when we asked you to do the PowerPoint and put some photos in, you went overboard and ended up getting all the kids one that everybody loves, just to get support for your item. So well done for that. Pātai, I'm going to go to Councillor Dalton first, and then I'll go to Whakaaro after that if there's no more Pātai. Jacqueline, well done.
Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Chair. Kia ora, Jacqueline.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. I attended the ones in Takanini and Te Wirihana, and they were amazing. My question is around the sustainability, or two questions perhaps. So how do you work with the tension of children not going and playing in the street when there isn't that control around? And to the sustainability. So is the intention, when we're not there, that the local residents will take, they will take responsibility for the play in the streets?
Okay, so I'll address your first question first. This is something which often comes up from play streets, and really the best thing that I can do is refer to the experiences and the learnings from play streets projects that have been running for a much longer time. So in Britain, for example, there's been a movement called Playing Out, which has now been running for a few years, and it's something they address, and they feel quite strongly, and I must say I do tend to agree, that children are actually pretty good at differentiating between when the street has been closed for them to play and when that hasn't happened. Obviously, the involvement of parents is crucial in this. So play streets doesn't mean just open your door and shove your kid out and let them get on with it. It very much requires parents to still be there supervising. And I think when we come to train residents around the health and safety and risk management elements of running a play street, we would also be making sure that they understand that they're going to need to also educate their children about the fact that a play street is one thing. That doesn't mean that the street is a site for play all the time. Although what we have seen with the streets that we ran the pilot in is that the residents on those streets have become much more conscious of children in the space and are driving more slowly, are keeping an eye out more for children. So that's another good outcome. So that's that. The second question of yours regarding the sustainability, the answer, I mean, we need to do a co-design process with AT to think about how the guidance will actually work in practice. It will be very much aligned with Waka Kotahi's guidelines, which, as I say, we fed into a lot. I have a very clear idea in my head of how the process could work to be very sustainable, but we still need to go through a co-design, and there might be many better ideas. But yes, certainly the short answer is absolutely. My goal is for us to develop guidance which makes sure that streets actively choose to participate and that they have a good representation of the neighbours who live on that street, all being, you know, signing up to it and being happy about it happening, so it's not being imposed on people. And that they have a good little core of volunteers who know that they will need to be involved in running the events, and that we then provide them with the training, the knowledge, the safety equipment, and the signage, and then that we give them the autonomy basically to decide when they run their play streets and how often. So some people may decide, okay, every Wednesday after school we've got 3 mums available and we're going to do it. Or some people may say, okay, it's going to be the last Sunday of every month, we're going to do it. So yeah, our goal is to really empower residents to do this for themselves.
Kapai, Jacqueline, forgot to mention our executive officer as well, Samantha Sinton, who wanted these photos. So I know she loves them as well. Councillor Dalton, I'm going to go to you for whakaaro, so then Councillor Mulholland, who moved this particular item, can close the debate. So Councillor Dalton, there's no other pātai, so I'll go straight to you.
Kia ora anō, Chair. I was a real sceptic of this program when it first came out, thinking of kids playing in streets. And even if we did go in and we provided everything that was required, then what would happen? Would they just continue to go out and play in the streets, especially in the cul-de-sacs around some of our communities? But I did attend the events, and in particular the one at Wari, Te Wirihana. Seeing the neighbours out there playing, talking, actually, the adults, the real important part about this is that it is community-led, and also through the Cause Collective. The Cause Collective really know how to engage with our people, and it was an incredible, incredible day that was had there. And I agree with Jacqueline that really set them up for lockdown, that set that community up for lockdown, and I bet they were resilient during that time. So I'm a supporter, or more power to you, Jacqueline, to find that sustainability, to get kids back playing together and parents talking and getting to know each other so they can go and play at each other's houses safely and without concern, and that we can get back to, you know, the old days when everyone played together. So thank you. I support this item.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Dalton. Jacqueline, before I go to Councillor Hills, I just wanted to make my little short comment in. This particular item is a younger version of what I used to do quite a bit with neighbourhood policing way back in the day when I was the community cop from 1984 in Mangere. So look, well done, Jacqueline, and this is a younger version of the neighbourhood policing. And Councillor Dalton, I also want to acknowledge the Cause Collective when Jacqueline came through with the initial concept with this, so totally support as well. So Councillor Hills, I'll go to you, and then there has been a call for a division on this particular one, but I will get Councillor Hills to go next, and then if there's no further, I'll get Councillor Mulholland to close. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Jacqueline, and thank you so much for this. Thank you and the team for working on what our communities hope is a flexible plan for them to have fun. And I guess it's going to make me sound old now. When I was a kid, we lived on a cul-de-sac in Glenfield, and we used to play with no traffic management or anything. And one of us would stand at the end of the road where the cars come down, and we'd all go, car, and everyone would scatter off the road, or get your bikes and get your sports equipment or whatever off the road. But I remember those nights, those weekends, those moments where you did get to know everyone, and of course the adults on the street got to know each other, because the kids were all like, I'm at, whatever's house till whatever time at night. And I think that there are not every street in our communities will work, obviously, but I think if there are opportunities, and to be as flexible as possible, I really hope that we can continue. I know it's important to have safety around it and training, but I hope there are ways that we can move to a more trust-based model with communities, because we know that parents, on the whole, and kids actually want to protect each other and want to have fun and not ruin it for everyone else. So I hope that we can move to a framework where we don't have to have too much of an onerous process on those neighborhoods. Put the structure in place, even the 2 to 3 hours, or having daylight saving could go a bit later for street barbecues and things, because actually some of our community groups already do this probably illegally in Kaipatiki and Takapuna now. And I've been to some of those events, but and that's just because of the trust of the street, and that's going to grow. So I think this is great. Hopefully it can roll out and we can see more opportunities. And I think it does create a wider behaviour change of those adults understanding kids on the street, slowing down in the rest of the community, and also the safety. Once you know your neighbours, and once you know who to call or yell out to, or notice who they are, then that creates those bonds for life, and it also makes the whole area safer. And also, like you say, this will also reduce emissions, give people more things to do in their local area. If there's more intensification, the roads are going to be, unfortunately, sometimes the parks and recreation spaces. So, yeah, I think this is exciting, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Kia ora. Councillor Mulholland to close the debate, and then I'll put the recommendation. Well, I won't put it. Maya, there's been a division called, so I'll let you do that once Councillor Mulholland has closed the debate. Kia ora.
Oh, kia ora, and thank you, Chair, and thanks to Jacqueline and actually a wider team over a very long period of time to support this. I want to acknowledge that the FO Local Board have contributed towards this by way of feedback, and quite some years ago, well, actually it's not that many years ago, but I attended a street party and helped with the team that we could establish this at the request of community. I'm just going to say a few no-brainer things, because one has to say it, although I think it's a bit PC, but safety first, we all know that. The team have done a lot of background work. We all want to protect the interests of our youth. So I think it's a fantastic idea. One of the things I particularly think are good, and I've been fortunate to have my home for about 28 years, and I've got the same neighbours. Well, actually, not all of them have been here that long. I probably need to move on. But, we have a great network of relationship building and caring for it. It's actually older community. And what we forget is our older people, they love to be connected to the young people as well. And so we haven't talked about them, and I think it's critical that we have our older community sharing. And as mentioned, and I totally agree, it is certainly not suitable for all streets, but I know you've all done a lot of background work. I've seen it work. I'm very supportive. As I say, it's a no-brainer on the safety issues. We are not dictators, so we should be enabling this type of activity for our people, because it is about our people. So I fully support this, and I acknowledge all of those people who get together and connect. And as I say, around my neighbourhood, I can name my neighbours. We support each other. I'm now, because I've been growing tomatoes, been able to give them vegetables, and people love that. Or if someone's unwell, and I think those sort of activities do engage and support a better connected, loving, kind community. So thank you, Chair, for allowing this report to come up. I think it's very important, and I know there's actually a very big team that have been working on this for a long time, Jacqueline, so thank you for this. I do support it, of course, but I'm a bit of a safety girl, so I do support it with all those safety measures and work you've done. So kia ora tātou.
Thank you. Could I just make a really quick point?
Jacqueline, just to let you know why we go to Pātai first and then to comment, is that after all the Pātai have been said, it's important that our staff then, for their safety, don't get involved with comments only because sometimes the comments are aimed at them. That was previously, but it was for your safety. So I know that your comments would have been complimentary to what Councillor Mulholland was going to say, but I just needed to sort of point out why I've been the bad guy and sort of interrupted you, was only because of the reason why we ended up doing that was for your safety and others. So my humble apologies, Jacqueline, and I know you can ring Councillor Mulholland after this and let her know. So my apologies. So look, there's been a division called, and Maya, can you carry out that division, please?
Okay, kia ora councillors, you're voting on whakai, approve Auckland Council staff to work with Auckland Transport and relevant stakeholders to develop Play Streets guidance for Tamaki Makaurau. Councillor Bartley.
4.
Councillor Casey.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Cashmore.
Aye.
Councillor Collins. Councillor Coombe.
Aye.
Councillor Cooper.
4.
Councillor Dalton.
4.
Councillor Darby.
4.
Chair Philipina.
Aye.
Mayor Goff.
Aye.
Councillor Hills.
Absolutely. Thank you.
IMSB member Kake.
100% 4.
Councillor Mulholland.
4.
Councillor Newman.
Yes.
Councillor Simpson. Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Walker. Councillor Watson. IMSB member Wilcox.
Aye.
Councillor Young.
4.
You need to stop. Thank you. That's carried 15 votes to 1.
Kia ora, thanks, Maya. We're moving to the